If you had told me a year ago that my family would become the kind of spectacle people whispered about in grocery store checkout lines, I wouldn't have believed it. Back then, I thought my worst problem was that my older sister Tara could never stand to let me have even a sliver of attention. Looking back now, that was barely a tremor before the earthquake. The moment it all truly began, really began, was the afternoon Tara lifted a cake knife toward my stomach at her own baby shower. Pink balloons fluttered overhead. Guests a punch and took photos. And there she stood, her mascara streaking down her cheeks, trembling with rage as she pointed the knife at my barely showing bump. "This is my day!" she screamed. The world had gone quiet. Every head turned. Even the fountain in the backyard seemed to hush itself. I remember Evan's hand wrapping around my arm, pulling me instinctively behind him, while Mark, Tara's husband, lunged forward to grab her wrist. I didn't scream. I didn't step back. I didn't even lift my hands in defense. I just stared, frozen in place, wondering how the sister who once braided my hair before school had turned into someone capable of threatening her pregnant sibling in front of 30 witnesses. And yet, that moment wasn't the climax of her story. It was the prologue. Because 2 weeks ago, police uncovered something that made even that knife look like a minor footnote. Inside our rented storage unit, barely a mile from Tara's house, sat a fully furnished nursery. 2 cribs, 2 rocking chairs, stacks of diapers, and pastel murals covering every wall. And at the center of one mural, painted in big, curling letters, were the names Evan and I had picked out for our babies. Names we hadn't shared with a soul. Except someone had known them. Someone had even written them on the walls like a declaration. That nursery was when detectives started using words like obsessive fixation and targeted behavior. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how everything fell apart, you have to see how it began to unravel piece by piece. And the first piece fell the day I walked across the stage at Riverton State University. The collapse at graduation. The auditorium was packed. I could see Evan in the 3rd row, his phone raised to capture the moment. My dad, Robert, sat beside him, clapping proudly. And just behind them, my mother, Janet, and my sister, Tara, sat with coordinated smiles, matching outfits, matching hairstyles, matching everything. They always presented their bond like a brand they were selling. When my name was called, I stepped forward, my heart racing with a mix of pride and stunned disbelief. I was the first in my family to graduate, the first to finish anything without dropping out, running off, or falling apart. I felt tall walking across that stage. And then I heard a scream. "Lena!" Tara's voice, shrill enough to slay through the auditorium's polite applause. I turned my head, just in time to see her collapse forward in her seat, dramatically clutching out her chest. A wave of gasps rippled across the room. Someone shouted for help. The dean signaled to halt the ceremony. Moments later, paramedics rushed inside. Another classic Tara performance. If she fainted, or convulsed, or gasped for breath, it was only ever during events that weren't about her. It had happened too many times for me to still pretend the timing was a coincidence. She fainted during my piano recital when I was 12, front row, with both arms limp like a marionette whose strings had been cut. She claimed to be having heart palpitations the night I was crowned prom queen. She caused a full-blown medical emergency during my engagement dinner, which resulted in the restaurant comping her entire meal. Now she had taken my graduation too. But none of those moments prepared me for what came next. 3 years passed before the next explosion. 3 years of surface-level calm, a thin sheet of ice hiding deep cracks. Then the baby shower invitation arrived. The envelope was pastel pink with Tara's calligraphy on the front. When I slid the invitation out, Evan peeked over my shoulder. "Oh boy," he muttered. "Ready for this circus?" I didn't answer. Instead, an idea flashed. Reckless, petty, and burning hot. "We're trying for a baby," I whispered, leaning close to him. He blinked in confusion. "Now? I thought we were waiting at least another..." "We're starting now." To anyone else, that would have sounded innocent, but I knew exactly what I was doing. Tara had always needed to win. Always needed to be prettier, thinner, louder, more adored. Being the first to have a baby, it was her crowning achievement. But I wanted one thing, just one moment where she wouldn't overshadow me. A moment she couldn't stage crash or fake her way through. Her baby shower was 3 months away. It gave me just enough time. Or so I hoped. The first house was negative. The second month, negative again. I lay in the dimness of the exam room during an early ultrasound, convinced something was wrong. The technician's expression shifted as she pressed the wand against my stomach. "Hold on," she murmured. She moved the probe slowly, then smiled. "Congratulations! You're having twins." I laughed, not a polite laugh, but a breathless, absurd, stunned burst of sound. Twins! As if the universe saw my ridiculous plan and decided to turn the volume up to maximum. From that moment, I committed. If I was going to face my sister's chaos, I would prepare with military precision. I became her biggest hype machine. "Tar, your nursery theme is adorable. Let me make you a countdown for your socials. Oh, you have to invite more people. Everyone wants to celebrate you. I'll design the invitations." I inflated his ego like a parade balloon, although quietly marking off the weeks until they're sour. Then came the baby name post. The name she stole. Delphina Aurora. A name unusual enough that I recognized it instantly. I had written that name in my private diary when I was 15. I'd scribbled it inside the back cover in sparkly purple pen, convinced my future daughter it would have a starry, whimsical name. I never told anyone. Not Evan, not Maya, not even my mom. But Tara had posted it as if it were her own idea. That was when it clicked. Tara had been going through my room. My drawers, my diaries. Who knew how long she had been prying into my private life? The morning of the baby shower, I curled Tara's hair. Well, she talked about how much better things were this way. Her becoming a mother first, the prettier sister getting the milestone, the pictures turning out nicely. She said it all without shame. And I just kept smiling in the mirror behind her, hiding the tiny swell under my dress. I told myself it would be one day. Just one day. After that, everything would make sense. I had no idea how wrong I was. The shower that set everything on fire. The backyard was decorated like a scene from a magazine. Balloons, pink centerpieces, Polish tables, a massive 3-tier cake perched on its stand like the queen of desserts. Guests mingled, Dara shone, drifting around in a blush-colored dress. People clutched their phones ready to film her little moments. And me? I stayed quiet. My stomach was small enough that only someone staring directly at me would notice the bump, but I kept a hand over anyway. At first, everything unfolded like a typical party, until Tara sidled up to her mother. "Look at Lena," she whispered loudly, gesturing towards me. "She's getting huge. If I didn't know better, I think she was the pregnant one." Mom laughed. "Luckily, you're the thin one, sweetheart. The pictures will look better that way." They snickered like girls in a high school bathroom. Then came the big countdown for the gender reveal. 3, 2, 1, pink confetti burst into the air. Tara shrieked, "It's a girl!" People clapped, cameras flashed, and I genuinely considered staying silent the whole time. But the nausea hit like a wave, and I barely made it to the bathroom before I threw up. When I stepped back outside, faces had shifted. Concerned eyes watched me. Someone handed me water, another asked if I was okay. And before I could stop myself, the truth spilled out. "Sorry, the twins are making me so sick. 6 weeks with twins feels like 10 months. Silence. Breathless, heavy silence. Then interruption. "Twins? Oh my goodness, Lena! Do they run in your family? When did you find out?" The crowd swarmed me like a flock of birds drawn to a single shimmer. Tara's face drained, pink, red, purple. Her breathing quickened, her eyes widened, and I braced for something. I can't breathe," she shrieked. People didn't even turn toward her this time. They were too busy touching my stomach. And that was when Tara snapped completely. She grabbed the knife. For a split second, I genuinely believed Tara might stab me. Not because she hated me, though she clearly did, but because she lost control entirely. The knife trembled in her grip, reflecting the soft pink decorations around us like a warped funhouse mirror. Her breath hitched in ragged, animalistic bursts. "This is my day!" she screamed, her voice cracking. Guests backed away, gasping. A few recorded from a distance, lowering their phones only when Mark barreled forward and twisted her wrist just hard enough for the knife to slip free. It clattered onto the patio stones and skidded beneath the dessert table. Tara froze. Then, like a puppet with its string severed, she crumpled to her knees and unleashed a guttural wail so loud it startled a flock of birds from the nearby trees. I always knew this would happen, she sobbed, pounding her fists against her thighs. She ruins everything, every single time. Everyone watched in stunned silence. And then, smack. My mother's hand collided with my face so hard that my vision blurred. The entire backyard fell silent. Janet stood trembling, her hands still raised. You selfish girl, she spat. Couldn't you let your sister have one moment? One? You disgust me. My cheek burned. I touched it, stunned, barely aware of Evan stepping protectively between us. Back away from my wife, he said sharply. But Janet surged forward again. Evan held his ground. Touch her again and I'll call the police. My mother recoiled as if someone had thrown ice water on her, not because of guilt, but because people were watching. Phones were raised, guests were whispering, even the neighbors peering from their yards were recording. Then someone shouted, Tara, stop! Oh my God! Tara vomited onto her expensive shoes, a thick, yellow splatter that stained the grass. The stress had pushed her body past its limit. Mark rushed over to lift her onto a chair while she heaved and groaned. She needs to go to the hospital, he insisted. But instead of concern, Janet whipped around and jabbed a finger in my direction. If something happens to that baby, it's your fault. Every head turned toward me. Evan grabbed my hand. We're leaving. Janet lunged forward again, this time screaming so loudly her voice cracked. But Maya intercepted her, placing herself squarely between us. You lay a hand on her again, Maya said, clear and steady, and I'm calling 911. A few people gasped, others nodded silently. It was the first time in my life someone had stood between my mother and me. As Evan guided me toward the exit, Tara lifted her head, her voice rasping with venom. If I lose my baby, I'll make sure you lose yours. A hush fell over the entire backyard. Evan stopped walking. That's it, we're reporting this now. He led me to the car while guests stood frozen, some horrified, some reporting, some whispering frantically. My cheek throbbed, my stomach churned, and deep inside, the twins twisted as if reacting to my fear. We drove straight to the police station. The officers watched the videos Maya and several others had saved. They took photos of my face, documented Tara's threat word for word, and told us to file for a restraining order first thing Monday. By the time Emmett and I got home, I was shaking so badly he had to help me out of the car. I'll make tea, he murmured. Chamomile. You lie down, okay? But I couldn't lie down. I couldn't sit. I couldn't think. My mind kept replaying Tara's face, twisted, purple, with rage, unrecognizable. There was something unhinged behind her eyes, something I hadn't wanted to admit for years. This wasn't normal jealousy. This was something darker. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Evan. When my phone finally buzzed the next morning, it wasn't Tara or Janet, it was the internet. The videos had gone viral, first on TikTok, then Instagram, then Facebook. I couldn't open a single notification without seeing comments like, "She's unhinged. That mother slapped her own pregnant daughter? This is why people go non-contact. She threatened the twins. That's insane." Others blamed me. "You shouldn't have announced your pregnancy at her shower. Petty revenge, much? You did that on purpose." I didn't try to respond. There was no point. But the drama didn't end online. At 7 a.m., someone leaned on our doorbell like they were trying to break it. Evan glanced through the peephole and stiffened. "It's your mother." Janet was outside, pounding on the door with both fists, her face blotchy and swollen from crying. "You need to open this door right now! Lena, open it!" Evan cracked the door with the chain still on. Janet shoved her fingers through the gap, trying to pry it open. "You need to take those videos down," she screamed. "You're ruining Tara's life." "You need to leave," Evan said firmly. "You've always been jealous of her," she wailed. "Even as a child, you tried to steal her spotlight." Neighbors peeked from their doors. Mrs. Hand from across the hall lifted her phone and started recording. Janet only screamed louder. "You planned this! You planned everything!" When Evan threatened to call police, she backed away, but only to shout more accusations from the hallway for another 20 minutes before storming off. I collapsed onto the couch afterward. "I can't do this," I whispered. Evan wrapped his arms around me. "You're not doing it alone." Robert, the one sane parent in my life, called that afternoon sounding exhausted. Tara's in the hospital. They're monitoring her blood pressure and her mental state. We need to talk, all of us.
I only agreed because Evan insisted. 2 days later, we walked into Marino's trattoria and spotted them already seated. Janet, Robert, Tara, and Mark. Tara wore heavy makeup to hide her exhaustion, but her eyes were dark and hollow. The moment I sat down, Janet launched into her tirade. "You owe your sister an apology," she snapped. "For what?" Evan asked calmly. "Being pregnant?" "For hijacking her special day." Tara sniffed dramatically, wiping invisible tears. "I just don't understand why she always ruins things for me. She's always been jealous, always." Mark flinched at her words. It was the first time I realized he didn't fully believe her anymore. Robert tried to interject, "Let's all take a breath," but Tara reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. She slid it across the table with a triumphant smile. "My lawyer says I have a strong case. I'm suing you for emotional distress and endangering my pregnancy." Evan didn't hesitate. He took out his phone and called it cousin Alyssa right there at the table. "Tara is suing us," he said into the phone. "Wanting the details?" Tara's expression cracked. Janet sputtered. "You brought a lawyer?" "No," Evan said calmly. "We have one." We left the restaurant while Janice screamed accusations behind us. Across the street, 2 teenagers were filming. Perfect. The evidence that changed everything. That night, Maya arrived with a bag of snacks and an expression that meant business. She said, "I've been saving these for years. I didn't know how bad things would get, but I always felt something was off." She tapped her screen and opened a folder titled Tara Incidents. Inside were hundreds of photos and screenshots. Tara fainting at my high school graduation. Tara clutching her chest at my acceptance party. Tara pretending to choke at my engagement dinner. Tara claiming she had a sudden allergic reaction at my bridal shower. Tara hogging the microphone at every event. Tara picking fights when the attention shifted even briefly. She had ruined literally every milestone I had ever had. Seeing it all laid out, chronological, undeniable, made my stomach twist. It wasn't petty jealousy. It was a pattern, a sickness, and I had ignored it for years. Alyssa agreed. "This isn't normal sibling rivalry. This is psychological obsession, possibly narcissistic personality traits. Document everything." So we did. And when we filed for a restraining order that Monday, the judge granted it immediately. Tara and Janet were legally forbidden from coming within 500 feet of me. It didn't last long. 2 days later, while Evan was working, Janet walked right into his building past security and demanded to see him. She screamed that I had destroyed Tara, that I was an evil liar, that I had set Tara up. Security escorted her out while employees stared through the glass walls. Police arrested her for violating the restraining order. It should have ended there. But the real nightmare hadn't even started. 3 nights after Janet's arrest, I woke at 3 a.m. to a sound outside the window. A car engine. Idling. I carefully pulled back the blinds. A sedan was parked across the street. Tara sat inside, just outside the distance of our restraining order. She didn't move, didn't pick up her phone, didn't blink, just stared directly at her windows with the headlights off. I watched her for 20 minutes. She never looked away. The next morning, Evan installed security cameras in every corner of our building, but it didn't matter because Tara came back the next night and the next, every night for 2 weeks, just sitting, staring, breathing fog onto her windshield. I didn't dare sleep, and the stress, it started affecting the twins. On my anatomy scan, Dr. Rivera frowned at the monitor. "One twin is measuring smaller," she said quietly. "We'll need weekly monitoring." My throat closed. "It's the stress, isn't it?" "It doesn't help," she admitted. "You need to avoid shocks, conflict, anything that could spike your blood pressure." Avoid conflict. With Tara. The universe had jokes. That night, as I tried to fall asleep, Maya called in a panic. "Lena, someone posted your medical info in a local moms group." My heart dropped. "What kind of info?" "Everything. Your ultrasounds, blood tests, appointment dates." Appointment dates. Which meant someone wanted to find me in person. Edmund immediately contacted hospital security. Alyssa called in favors. An internal investigation began. The culprit? Karen, my stepmother. She had accessed my medical records 17 times from her hospital login. 17! She was arrested the next day. And that was when everything reached its tipping point. Mark texted me late that night. I opened the message expecting another update about Tara's unpredictable behavior. Instead, he wrote, "I found something in our closet. You need to see it." He sent
The day Mark found the notebook, my world shifted on its axis. I had always known Tara resented me, but hatred, real, seething hatred, felt like too heavy a word to attach to my own sister. Yet, page after page in that spiral-bound journal proved otherwise. There were entries dating back to when we were teenagers, pages describing how she planned to fake injuries or medical emergencies, lists of diversion tactics she could use at my events, ideas for sabotaging relationships, school presentations, even simple family dinners. One page had a drawing of me crying on a stage. Another had a chart comparing ways to upstage me in different scenarios. As I scrolled through the photos Mark sent, my hand shook so violently Evan had to take the phone from me. "This is obsession," he murmured, "not jealousy. This is something darker." I didn't disagree. But staring at those pages, I also felt something else. Grief. Grief for a sister I thought I knew. Grief for the childhood I imagined we shared equally. Grief for the illusion I'd been clinging to for most of my life. That grief didn't get much time to settle, because the next morning, Tara escalated. I was lying in bed, forcing myself to drink water despite the constant nausea, when my phone buzzed relentlessly. Evan burst into the room holding his own phone. "You need to see this," he said, jaw tight. Tara had posted a long, dramatic Facebook update, complete with doctored screenshots and edited photos. The post accused me of stalking her. She claimed I'd been harassing her for months, following her to appointments, sabotaging her pregnancy. There were text messages supposedly from me, completely fabricated. There were pictures of me in random places that Tara had edited to make it look like I was lurking behind her. The post spread like wildfire within hours. Hundreds of shares, thousands of comments. Strangers calling me a monster. Others offering to protect Tara from me. A few threatening to handle me themselves. Someone posted our address. Someone else commented, "If she loses her baby because of Lena, it will be justice." A third added a skull emoji. Evan contacted the FBI that same afternoon. Alyssa contacted the cybercrime division. Dr. Rivera begged me not to leave the house unless absolutely necessary, but the damage was done. Almost overnight, I became the villain in a story Tara had crafted to perfection. I felt like I was drowning, in fear, in humiliation, in anger, in disbelief. And the stress, it kept building. At my next appointment, Dr. Rivera looked grim as she measured Twin B in the ultrasound. "We're seeing signs of growth restriction," she said gently. "Your stress hormones are off the charts. This isn't your fault, but it is affecting the babies." I felt my chest tighten. "What do I do?" I whispered. "For now, bed rest. Limited visitors, no confrontations, no social media. And Lena, you need to avoid stressful triggers. Triggers like Tara, triggers of my mother, triggers like the entire world turning against me." "I'll do anything," I said, voice cracking. Evan held my hand the entire ride home. Neither of us spoke, because we both knew that someone out there hated me enough to jeopardize not just my safety, but my babies. I thought things couldn't get more surreal. Then the hospital called. Karen, my stepmother, had been fired and arrested for illegally accessing my medical records more than a dozen times. She had pulled my ultrasounds, my labs, my appointments, even my weight at each visit, all while knowing exactly how vulnerable I was. Robert came to our door red-eyed and shaking. "I swear, Lena," he said, "I didn't know she was doing any of this. I would never allow." I believed him. He looked shattered, but intention didn't matter anymore. Karen had fed Tara every detail of my pregnancy, and the police confirmed it. Her arrest made the news. The comments online were horrific. People picked sides. Some defended Tara, some defended me. Some said the whole family was insane. Others speculated that Tara was dangerous and needed psychiatric care. But Tara wasn't done. Not even close. It was 11:42 p.m. when Evan shook me awake. "Lena," he whispered urgently, "there's someone outside." I jolted upright. He pointed toward the window. I peeked between the blinds. The same sedan. Tara inside, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, staring up at her apartment. My breath hitched. "She's been there since 9, Evan whispered. We called the police. They took over an hour to arrive, by which point Tara had already driven off. I barely slept that night. Or the next, or the next. She returned every evening, sitting just outside the restraining order distance, watching our home.
Dr. Rivera warned that the stress could cause premature labor. Eliza warned that Tara's stalking pattern meant escalation was likely. Maya warned that things weren't going to magically resolve. Everyone warned me, but nobody could stop it. 3 weeks after the baby shower, I found myself sitting in the dark, reading through hateful comments online while my babies rolled anxiously inside my stomach. Evan tried to take my phone, but I pulled it back, desperate to understand how my life had fallen apart so spectacularly. "This is going to destroy you," he said quietly. "No," I whispered. "Tara already did that." The next morning, we went to court to extend the restraining order. Alyssa came armed with screenshots, videos, statements, timestamps, dates, and the entries from Tara's notebook. The judge took one look at the evidence and granted a stronger protective order. But Tara didn't respect it. Of course she didn't. My phone buzzed while Evan and I were eating lunch. It was Maya, panting on the other end. "Lena," she said breathlessly, "Tara is in the hospital lobby. She's trying to get to your OB floor. Security's blocking her." My heart sunk. I could picture Tara, wild-eyed, disheveled, manic, demanding access. "What is she saying?" I asked. Maya hesitated. "She's screaming that she needs to save your babies." My blood ran cold. Evan grabbed the keys before I could even stand. But before we made it out the door, security called us directly. "She's been removed," the officer said, "but she made the threatening statements. We strongly recommend limited travel until notice further." Tara was unraveling, and I didn't know where the bottom of her unraveling was. When Dr. Rivera checked me after the hospital incident, she frowned at the contraction monitor. "We need to slow these down," she said. "Your body thinks it's time to go into labor." I was only 24 weeks. The babies would not survive. They admitted me overnight. Evan stayed in the flimsy chair beside my bed, watching me with eyes full of fear. "This isn't sustainable," he whispered. He wasn't wrong, but I wasn't ready to admit it. The next day, Mark appeared at my hospital door, holding a vase of flowers. "Can I come in?" he asked hesitantly. I nodded. He sat down beside the bed, twisting his wedding ring nervously. "I'm sorry for everything," he said. "I tried to help her. I really did. But she's not well, Lena. She hasn't been for a long time." I swallowed hard. "Tara needs help. Real help." He refuses therapy, won't take her medication, won't listen to anyone. He ran a hand over his face. "I'm meeting with the custody lawyer tomorrow. I need to protect our daughter." Something inside me cracked, not out of sympathy for Tara, but for their baby. A baby who deserved better than chaos. Mark took a shaky breath. "I'll testify, Lena. About everything. The notebook, the nights she sat outside your place, the threats, whatever you need." I covered his hand with mine. "Thank you," because I knew we were heading towards something irreversible. That evening, Maya arrived with a fresh storm. "Someone posted your medical documents in the Riverton Mom's Farm," she said, slamming her laptop onto the table. "Your due date, your weight, your tests, everything." I felt dizzy. "Who would—" She answered before I could finish. "Karen." The horror I felt was undescribable. My private medical records were being shared by strangers on the internet. Young moms debated whether I was faking the twin pregnancy. Others called me dramatic, manipulative, dangerous, unstable. One woman suggested someone should confront me in person. Another said she'd drive by my house to see if I seemed pregnant at all. A third insinuated I'd stolen her baby name out of spite. It was madness. Absolute madness. After reviewing the posts, our lawyer insisted we pursued charges: privacy violations, harassment, threats, stalking, defamation, emotional distress. Evan drove us to the police station. I could barely climb out of the car. I felt broken. But when the officers reviewed the evidence, their faces grew serious. "This is no longer a family dispute," one of them said. "This is criminal." They documented everything. Every threat, every screenshot, every night Tara spent watching our home, every illegal access of my medical files, every detail of the baby shower meltdown. Alyssa prepared a formal case. "This will take months," she warned, "but we will win." I didn't know if winning was even possible anymore, because no matter what happened in court, we'd already lost so much.
The week after the hospital stay felt eerily quiet, too quiet. Evan and I tried to settle into a routine, but every sound made me jump. Every car that slowed near our building sent fear crackling through my nerves. I lived an 18-second burst of panic, never fully exhaling, always waiting for the next shock. Bedrest became my entire world. I lay on the couch or in bed while Evan did everything, cleaning, cooking, working remotely when he could. Maya practically moved in, insisting that I shouldn't be alone, not even for 5 minutes. The twins rolled and kicked as if reminding me they were still here, still fighting, but the peace never lasted. It couldn't, not with Tara unraveling. Mark called every other day with updates. "She's not speaking," he said once, "just sitting in the nursery rocking chair for hours." Another time, "She keeps muttering about how the baby needs protection. I don't know what that means." And then, more ominously, "She blames you for everything. Every loss, every setback, every pain." He sounded exhausted, broken in a way I'd never heard before. "You should stay somewhere safe," he warned, "with people around, with security." I wanted to believe he was exaggerating, but deep down, I knew he wasn't. Because the notebook kept replaying in my mind, pages and pages documenting her obsession with me. And when someone is that fixated, logic means nothing. The calm between storms is just the universe taking a breath. It was a Tuesday night around 1 a.m. when our building security alarm went off. Evan shot out of bed before I could even sit up. There was shouting in the hallway, a banging sound, a scream. Maya's voice echoed from the living room, "Don't open the door." My heartbeat hammered in my ears. I struggled to stand, waddling into the hall just as Evan reached the peephole. "Call 911, he whispered. Maya grabbed her phone with shaking hands. "What is it?" I asked. Evan swallowed hard. "It's Janet, Tara's mother. My mother." She was outside our apartment door, pounding it with both fists, screaming incoherently. I could hear her through the door. "Lena, open this. Open it right now. You can't keep my grandchildren away from me." I felt nauseous. Grandchildren? Whose? Mine? Tara's? Did she even understand the difference anymore? Building security arrived first. They dragged her backwards as she clawed at the doorframe. She was escorted out while shrieking that the police were conspirators, helping me steal Tara's baby. When deputies arrived minutes later, they arrested her for violating the restraining order, again, and for attempted forced entry. As they carried her away, she screamed my name like a curse. I collapsed under the couch, trembling uncontrollably. Evan wrapped me in his arms. "They can't get in," he whispered. "They can't come near you. You and the babies are safe." But even as he said it, he knew what I knew. If Janet was this unhinged, Tara would be worse. 3 days later, we attended the restraining order extension hearing. Mark was there, looking worn down and lost. Tara did not appear in person. Her attorney claimed she was emotionally fragile and bedridden due to pregnancy distress. The judge reviewed the police reports, the notebook entries, the stalking videos, the break-in attempt, the medical record reaches, and the online harassment. By the end, he looked genuinely disturbed. He extended the protection order to 3 years. Tara couldn't come within 1,000 feet of me, Evan, or our home. Janet's was extended too. But the real bombshell came from Mark. When the judge opened the floor for testimony, Mark stood. "Your Honor," I think Can just acting like he banished you. Was he landed for you like that? "I'm falling for separation and for full custody once my daughter is born. I fear for her safety." Tara's attorney sputtered. "Mr. Holden, we were not informed." But Mark continued. She's not well. She's not stable. She's threatened Lena multiple times. She has endangered our babies, and she refuses help. I need to protect my child." The courtroom fell silent. Even the judge paused. I covered my mouth, feeling a painful mixture of heartbreak, relief, guilt, and raw sadness. Because, even after everything, I didn't want Tara's life destroyed. I only wanted her to stop destroying mine. But there was no stopping this landslide now. Her attorney requested recess. The judge denied it. The rulings were final. Tara had lost control of her narrative, and she was going to snap. At 2 a.m. that night, Evan's phone buzzed. He unlocked it and frowned. "It's from Mark." He handed me the phone. "Tara's gone. She left the house at midnight. She took the car seat and the diaper bag. I think she's heading to you. Please be careful." My blood iced. "Call the police," I whispered. Evan already was. Officers patrolled outside our building for hours. Maya slept on my couch with a baseball bat she swore was just for comfort. I barely slept a minute. Tara didn't show up that night, but she had a plan, and it was only beginning. 2 days later, my phone buzzed again. It was Detective Hamill, the officer assigned to our case. "Mrs. Clark," he said in a grave tone, "we've found something. You need to come down to the station." My stomach nodded. What did Tara do now? "It's better if you see it in person." Evan and I arrived an hour later. The detective led us to a small room with a laptop and a stock of printed photographs. We executed a search warrant on a storage unit Tara rented under her maiden name. This is what we found inside. He clicked play on the surveillance footage. My jaw dropped. A fully furnished nursery filled the screen. 2 cribs, 2 rocking chairs, 2 infant swings, 2 of everything.
The walls were painted with whimsical murals, pastel forest, floating stars, gentle clouds, but worst of all, in looping cursive letters painted across the main wall were the names Evan and I had chosen. Names we had never said out loud to anyone. Names only we knew. I felt my throat close. "She stole," I whispered. "She didn't steal," Evan said. "She spied." But how? Detective Hamill placed the stack of photos in front of us. Inside the unit, among the baby gear, boxes, and murals, were journals, more notebooks filled with Tara's handwriting, each one documenting her fantasy life as a mother. Except, the babies in those fantasies weren't hers. They were mine. I felt my body begin to shake uncontrollably. "But she's pregnant," I whispered. "She has her own baby. Why?" Detective Hamill shook his head. Her OB confirmed her pregnancy is real, but that doesn't rule out fixation. Patients with delusional attachment often feel entitled to someone else's children, even when they're expecting their own. I felt sick. Evan's hand slipped into mine. "So what now?" Evan asked. "We're issuing a warrant, but until she's located, you two need to disappear." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I mean, pack clothes, today. You're leaving the state." The room spun around me. "Your safety is compromised," he said firmly. "And based on what we found in that unit, Tara is preparing for something involving your twins." By that evening, Evan and I were stuffing clothes into duffel bags. Maya cried while folding baby linens. Robert showed up unexpectedly, apologizing through tears for everything he never stopped and everything he ignored. I should have seen it. I should have helped her. "It's not your fault," I said, even though part of me wondered whether it was. Detective Hamill had arranged temporary housing out of state under emergency protection, a safe, undisclosed location, a private medical facility nearby for the twins. It wasn't witness protection, just a temporary relocation for victims in high-risk situations. But the idea of leaving my home, my bed, my life, terrified me. Evan loaded the last bag into the car. "We're going to be okay," he promised softly. I nodded but couldn't speak, because I knew something now with chilling clarity. Tara wasn't just spiraling. She was escalating toward a point of no return, and the next time she appeared wouldn't come just to scream. She would come to take something, or someone, or everything.
We left our apartment that evening under police escort. 2 patrol cars followed behind us while Detective Hamill drove ahead, guiding us toward the interstate. Every time a pair of headlights appeared behind us, I flinched. Every dark SUV looked like Tora. Every slow-moving car felt like someone tailing us. Evan kept one hand on the wheel and the other on my knee. "You are okay," he whispered whenever my breath hitched. "We're almost out of town." But my pulse didn't calm until we crossed the state border and pulled into a secure residential compound. Private gates, security cameras, guards posted around the clock. The cottage we were given was small but warm, tucked behind tall pines that swallowed most outside noise. For the first time in weeks, I slept for more than an hour at a time. Almost. We settled into the safe house with slow, cautious optimism. I spent my mornings on the couch reading pregnancy books I should have been reading months earlier. Evan answered dozens of emails from work. Maya stayed with us for the first week, then returned home with strict instructions to check in every morning and night. Mark kept updating us too. "She's gone full ghost mode," he said during one late-night call. "Won't answer my messages, won't speak to her mother. Her phone's off. She left the house once last week. No idea where she went." Evan and I made eye contact. We knew exactly where she'd gone. The storage unit. The detective confirmed this 2 days later. "We found fresh footprints inside the unit," he said. "Someone's visiting regularly, but the cameras didn't catch the face. We didn't have to guess. Tara had always known how to slip through blind spots, how to find loopholes, how to bend rules until they snapped." The nursery she built in that storage unit had not been a delusion. It had been a blueprint, and something in my bones told me she wasn't done with it. One morning, as I was brushing my teeth, I felt something tighten in my abdomen. Sharp, sudden, and wrong. I froze, gripping the sink. Another wave hit, stronger. "Evan," I shouted hoarsely. He ran into the bathroom, panic already flickering in his eyes. "What's wrong? Is it the BBs? Lena, talk to me." I managed to gasp. Contraction. We grabbed the hospital go bag and rushed to the private medical facility nearby, the one the detective had arranged for us. The drive felt like an eternity. Doctors immediately placed monitors around my belly. They confirmed what I already feared. Preterm labor had begun. At 26 weeks. Too early. Far too early. They hooked me to IV fluids, magnesium sulfate to protect babies' brains, steroids for their lungs. My body trembled uncontrollably. Evan held my hand through every hour of it. Overnight,
The contraction slowed, but twin B, the smaller one, was in distress. "We're stabilizing things," Dr. Rivera said during a video call the next morning, "but stress is still a major factor. You need absolute calm." Calm? How? When a woman who hated me was roaming somewhere out there, waiting for an opportunity to strike. I didn't say the thought out loud, but Evan knew. "We're staying. We're not leaving the safe house until after the babies come," he said firmly. That became our new plan. We didn't know then how quickly it would unravel. 3 weeks passed. We got into a rhythm. Doctor's appointments twice a week, check-ins with Detective Hamill, meals delivered by security staff so we didn't have to leave. Mark sent updates about Tara. "She talks to herself more. She thinks you're hiding something from her. She says the babies are connected to her somehow." Another time, "She's not eating well. Her blood pressure is bad. Her doctor's concerned." And once, chillingly, "She said she won't let your babies grow up with you. I'm sorry, I told her doctor. They're monitoring her, but she's not committed." Every new piece of information felt like someone tightening a rope around my chest. Still, for a while, nothing happened. No sightings, no threats, no late-night stalking, just the constant, unyielding dread. Then one Thursday evening, as the sun dipped behind the pines, a guard knocked on our door. "Mr. and Mrs. Clark," he said quietly, "we need to confirm something. Did either of you order a package from Rewritten?" Evan and I exchanged a glance. "No," Evan said. The guard nodded grimly. "Then you should see this." He led us to the small, gated entryway where a brown package sat underneath one of the security cameras. The shipping label had no return address. But the handwriting, I knew it instantly. Tara's. My breath froze. The guard donned gloves, lifted the box, and nudged it open. Inside lay a pacifier, a baby blanket, a pair of tiny socks, a rattle, and a handwritten note. Evan picked up the note with trembling hands. It read, "They'll be safer with me, you know that. Stop fighting what's meant to happen." I nearly fainted. The guard immediately contacted the detective. "We're tightening perimeter security," he said. "No one's getting in or out without being authorized." But I already knew something. Tara had found us, and it wouldn't end with the box. It was 3 days later. I woke at 4:17 a.m. to the sound of gravel crunching under tires. At first I thought I dreamed it, but then Maya, who had returned for a visit, burst into my room whispering urgently, "Lena, someone's outside." Evan jolted awake. We crept to the window. A car idled at the edge of the tree line, dark enough to be invisible from the road, but close enough that we could see the faint silhouette inside. My heart stopped. The outline was familiar. Too familiar. "Is that?" Maya whispered. "Yes," I breathed. "It's her. Tara." She'd found the one camera blind spot near the fence. Before we could call security, she stepped out of the car holding something. A diaper bag. My stomach dropped. Security guards sprinted toward her, shouting commands. But Tara only screamed, "The babies are mine!" She charged toward the back gate. 2 guards tackled her before she could reach the entrance. I heard her screaming even from inside the house. "You can't keep them from me! I'm their mother! Lena stole them! She stole my babies!" Her voice cracked in a way that didn't sound human. It sounded feral, unhinged, delusional. They restrained her while she kicked, sobbed, begged, screamed, and then suddenly went limp, like a puppet whose string had been cut. Police arrived minutes later. They placed her in the back of a squad car while she stood straight ahead, her cheek pressed to the window. Her face was vacant, her pupils wide. But the look she gave me when she spotted my silhouette in the window, it was the most terrifying expression I have ever seen in my life. Hatred, grief, entitlement, rage, delusion. A cocktail of emotions that had been fermenting for years. Evan wrapped his arms around me as the car drove away. "You're safe," he whispered. But I didn't feel safe, because the fear I felt wasn't about Tara anymore. It was about the babies. My body had been clenching since the moment I saw her, and the pain began minutes later. A contraption tore through me like fire. I doubled over, clutching the kitchen counter. "Evan," I gasped, It's happening. They're coming. He froze for a half heartbeat, then everything went blurry. He grabbed the hospital go bag, Maya grabbed my arm, security cleared a path. An ambulance was already on site, just in case. I barely registered the drive. Doctors rushed me into a delivery suite. We can't stop the labor anymore, someone said. She's too far along. Twin B's heart rate was dropping. Evan squeezed my hand. You're not doing this alone, he whispered. Everything unfolded in fast forward. Pain, pressure, voices shouting instructions, the blinding glow of surgical lights. Baby A delivered. A thin cry pierced the air. Then, Baby B struggling, keep pushing. I pushed until I thought my body would break. Then another cry, low, weak, trembling. We need to stabilize her. NICU now. 2 incubators will pass me too quickly for me to see inside. I sobbed uncontrollably. Evan kissed my head again and again. You did it, Lena, you did it, he whispered. But all I could think was, are they okay? Will they survive? Is this my fault? Is any of this ever going to end? I passed out minutes later. Waking up. When I opened my eyes hours later, Evan was sitting beside me, his face worn but relieved. They're alive, he whispered before I could even ask. Both girls, they're tiny, but they're fighting. Tears blurred my vision. Twin B? I whispered. Is she... She's stable, he said. Fragile, but stable. I breathed out a single word. Thank God. He hesitated. There's something else, he said. The police want to talk to you. My heart dropped. He squeezed my hand. It's about Tara. I looked at him, barely able to speak. What happened? He exhaled shakily. They've placed her on a psych hold, a long one, and they're recommending she remain there indefinitely. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed with relief, grief, and exhaustion, because I knew now. This part of the story was over, but the damage she caused would take a long time to fade. For me, for Evan, for our babies, for Mark, for everyone involved.
When chaos ends, the silence doesn't feel peaceful. It feels suspicious, like a trap waiting to snap shut the moment you breathe too deeply. That was the silence I woke into after giving birth. Evan helped me into a wheelchair, and a nurse escorted us toward the NICU. The hallways were quiet except for the muffled beeping of monitors and the hum of ventilation. The entire world seemed to hold its breath. Inside the NICU, everything felt impossibly tiny. Tiny machines, tiny blankets, tiny diapers, tiny fists waving weakly in the air. My babies lay in 2 incubators, surrounded by tubes, wires, and blinking lights. Baby A was pink and scrunched up, her little chest rising and falling with effort but determination. Baby B was smaller, frighteningly small, with translucent skin and a fragile rib cage that looked like it could crack beneath the weight of her breath. A nurse approached kindly. They're fighters, she said softly. Especially this one. She nodded toward baby B. She's already trying to breathe more on her own. I pressed trembling fingers against the incubator wall, wishing I could hold them both, wishing everything didn't feel like it was still falling apart. Evan wrapped his arm around my shoulders. They're safe, he whispered. No one can hurt them now. But safety wasn't a place. It was a process, and we were only at the beginning of it. Later that afternoon, Detective Hamill came to my hospital room. He carried a tablet and a thick folder stuffed with documents. First, he said gently, Tara is stable. She's in a psychiatric facility under a mandatory 72-hour hold, but the evaluating psychiatrist has already recommended extending that hold significantly. My stomach clenched. Is she dangerous? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened the folder. These are dated entries from her notebook, newer ones, the ones we found in the storage unit. He handed me a few pages. My hands shook as I read, If I time it right, I can take the babies before anyone notices. She doesn't deserve them. I do. Everything will be perfect once Lena is gone. I swallowed hard. What happens now? Evan asked. Detective Hamill sighed. She'll undergo full psychiatric evaluation. Depending on the findings, she may be placed under long-term involuntary treatment. What about charges? I asked. There will be charges, he admitted, but her mental state complicates things. Whether she's competent to stand trial is another question. I felt a mix of emotions: relief, guilt, confusion, sorrow. She was my sister. She was also my stalker. She endangered my life. She endangered my babies. It's hard to mourn someone who tried to destroy you. It's harder not to. Mark visited me a week later. He looked thinner, older, drained. His hands shook as he sat beside my bed. I filed the paperwork, he said quietly, for separation and full custody. My throat tightened. I'm so sorry. He shook his head. Don't be. This is the bravest thing I've ever done. Tears gathered in his eyes. I loved her, he whispered. Not this version of her, but the girl I married, I don't know where she went. I didn't know what to say. Some wounds don't have comforting words. Some losses don't have neat endings. He looked at the NICU window behind me. Your girls are beautiful, he murmured. They deserve a peaceful life. I nodded, blinking back tears. His voice cracked. I hope my daughter gets that too. He left soon after, shoulders hunched, grief trailing behind him like shadows. Just as things began to settle, Maya rushed into my hospital room, holding her phone like it might explode. You need to read this. My stomach dropped. Please tell me this isn't more comments. It's not, she said. It's worse. She held out the screen. A local news article. Riverton woman arrested after attempted abduction. Family conflicts turns violent. Tara's face was on full display. Then mine, then Evan's, then Janet's. The article detailed the baby shower attack, the storage unit nursery, the stalking, the break-in, the psychiatric hold. All of it. Thousands of comments poured in, some supportive, most horrifying. She should have seen the warning signs. That family is cursed. Hormones don't make you do that. They should take all the babies away. Poor Mark. Poor Lena. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. The internet had turned our trauma into entertainment. I wanted to go home. I wanted to take my babies home. I wanted normal life back. But normal was gone. We were living in the aftermath. Life became a routine of sterile hallways, pumping milk, kangaroo care, hushed monitors, and whispered prayers. Baby A grew strong quickly. Baby B fought harder. Some days she gained weight, other days she lost it. I lived in a fragile balance between hope and terror. Evan visited every second he wasn't at work. Maya brought food I usually didn't eat. Nurses became my lifeline. Social workers came and went. Security guards patrolled the halls. And every night when the NICU finally forced us to leave, I lay awake listening to every creak of the cottage walls, half expecting Tara to appear in the doorway even though she was locked away miles from us. Trauma doesn't disappear just because the threat is gone. It lingers. It stains. But slowly, painfully slowly, healing began. At 5 weeks old, baby B gained 3 ounces in one day. Then 4 the next day, then 6. Her cheeks started filling out. Her breathing stabilized. Her tiny fingers curled around mine with new strength. She's a fighter, the NICU nurse said proudly, just like her mom. I cried into Evan's shoulder. For the first time in months, the tears tasted like hope, not fear. 2 months after the birth, Detective Hamill returned to update us. He said, "The psychiatric review is complete." My heartbeat quickened. What did they decide? Evan asked. Tara's has been diagnosed with a severe delusional disorder, compounded by narcissistic pathology and postpartum psychosis indicators. She will be remanded to a long-term psychiatric care facility. For how long? I whispered. He exhaled. Realistically, years. Tears welled in my eyes, some for myself, some for her, some for the child she'd soon give birth to without ever holding.
What about charges? Evan asked. They're being dropped, Hamill explained gently. She's not competent to stand trial. Part of me wanted justice, another part knew this was the only path that made sense. What about Janet? I asked quietly. She's facing charges for medical privacy violations, harassment, and multiple restraining order breaches. She'll likely get probation and mandatory counseling. I nodded. And just like that, the chapter closed. Not cleanly, not happily, but definitively. After 71 days in the NICU, both girls were cleared to come home. We dressed them in matching soft cotton onesies and strapped them gently into the car seats the hospital provided. Evan took photos, his hands shaking. "Are you ready?" he whispered. Ready. Not for normal life, not for closure, not for forgetting, but for something new. Something quieter. Something almost peaceful. The safe house became a home for the first time. The cries of 2 babies filled the rooms. Warmed bottles cluttered the countertop. Sleepless nights weren't caused by fear anymore, but by hungry newborns. And even though the trauma still surfaced in waves, panicked jolts when a car slowed near the driveway, nightmares about knife blades and stalker silhouettes, I finally felt something I hadn't felt for so long. A future. Mine, Evan's, our daughter's. A life untouched by Tara's obsession. Months later, after we'd relocated permanently to a quiet neighborhood hours from Riverton, Mark visited with his infant daughter. He held her gently like she was made of spun sugar. "He deserves stability," he said quietly, watching her sleep. I nodded, tears in my eyes. "So do you," he said, glancing at my twins napping in their bassinets. We talked for hours about recovery, parenting, therapy, the future. About light appearing in places we'd forgotten to look. As he left, he paused at the door. "When the girls are older," he said softly, "and they ask about Tara, what will you tell them?" I swallowed. "The truth," I said, but gently. He nodded, good. And then he left with his daughter, a new father trying to build a life from the ashes of one he lost. Stories like mine don't end with a single moment. They end slowly, in layers, through therapy, time, boundaries, forgiveness, and fear slowly dissolving into memory. Tara's actions didn't define my life. They changed it, but they didn't end it. I still wake up sometimes with my heart racing, hearing phantom screams from a baby shower that feels like a lifetime ago. I still check the locks twice. I still glance over my shoulder more than I should. But when I look at my daughters, healthy, strong, endlessly loved, I know one thing with absolute certainty. We survived her, and now we get to live.